This video is about infiltration and how it works. I've had ranging comments on my YouTube channel about a gentleman who goes by the name Dallas Hills and about an organization called Unify the People, and those comments have ranged from call these things out to they want to work with you. So, Constitutional Conventions is Dallas Hills' group, and it says here creating a natural law republic. So republic is something where power is in the hands of the people, and they call out the fact that Canada is a corporation, which I have done in videos in the past as well, but they take it a step further and go on to explain that the Constitution itself is illegitimate and was apparently ratified illegitimately in another nation outside of the borders of corporate Canada, if you will. So Dallas actually knows a whole lot more about the subject, and I'd actually recommend looking at the website despite what I will be saying about him in the video. Just view the information with discretion, is all I'll say. He ends up finding my email. I'm still not sure how, but I'm pretty sure it was through me having left my email in the comments at some point. And I just don't know why it took so long for him to get a hold of me. He ends up telling me that he's banned on YouTube and these things, but why not just open up another account under a different email or have one of your many friends do so? Anyway, there were a lot of red flags about this, but regardless, I've still blocked out his number here because I still don't want to be accused of doxing anyone. So, on December the 28th, we ended up speaking actually, both over the phone and through Zoom. And he claimed that he had started Unify the People in 2020, had it for 6 months, but started constitutional conventions about 5 years before that. I don't know if that is true or not, if I'm honest, but I thought it was worth mentioning. So, at one point on December the 29th, actually, he and Wanda Lee were apparently impressed with my knowledge. Wanda is his partner or wife, by the way, who assists him with everything. And it says here, hey Dallas, it's Monique. I later learned that this is Monique Casson, and I see this shill list, if you will, and a lot of these people, or some of these people I should say, like Tamara Leach, I've already called out in previous videos, and I later find out that he's known James Bowder for over 5 years. So what the hell does he need me to look into some of these names for? I figure this is just simply to distract me because I'm not somebody who can be intimidated or bought by these people, essentially. So, moving forward, here we have a lovely picture in this video of Monique Casson, and she owns this art gallery, the She Shed by the Shuswap Shore. Excuse the tongue twister. I'm not sure if the business is still functional or in operation, if I'm honest with you. However, what I will say is this, is you, Monique, you commented on my trucker convoy video asking about James Bowder. I would, A, recommend speaking to Dallas about that, and also, secondly, I will just tell you that you should watch those videos if you haven't, and that both sides of a narrative are always controlled throughout history, and essentially the previous truck convoy and this one, from the looks of it, were never grassroots to begin with and infiltrated. No, they were tactically planned operations, is what they are. That is exactly what they are. And essentially, you're left with two choices at this point in history, or at least this is what they want you to feel. You're against coercive measures being taken and for the convoy, or against the convoy and for coercive measures being taken. However, either side you take, you're damned. So, pointing me in the right direction was a gentleman by the name of Christopher Gamblin, who sent me emails revolving around something called Unify the People and its corporate registry. However, I'm using a different link than the one he had sent me because I think it's more relevant for this video. However, Christopher, you did point me in the right direction, so I thank you for that. Unify the People is a federal corporation in Saskatchewan, and it's incorporated with Corporations Canada, a division of Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada. So ISED, I've already covered in my previous video entitled Covfefe. And essentially ISED is a doorway of several sustainable development projects, is what it is. And we can see here, Dallas Hills is one of the directors, along with others who I'll be talking about, such as Eric Cabernell, and Scott Rayner. And what I was told, in particular by Dallas, was that somebody named Lorraine Stewart had suggested he incorporate Unify the People to protect himself, but he was never really elaborate as to why that is, and he apparently has no idea how to find her. So I think that she's just simply a ghost and not real, and this is a lie in order to make me look into nothing, because he knows I would be looking into him and knows I am cautious of him. So, moving forward, there was a live stream done on Maverick Multimedia, which is ran by this guy, Rick Walker, and there was a guest on there who goes by the name Serena Freedom Bear, whose real name I learned is Serena Winterburn. And I had left ranging comments from calling out a lot of the control ops such as Pat King or groups like the Yellow Vests, and I was of course accused of creating division. However, I was not addressed directly. In the show, something along the words are said that people create division, and I know I was being referred to, but Rick was too much of a coward to address me directly, so I'll address you directly in this video, Rick. You worked for CTV for just under 10 years, and now you have a alternative media platform. Well, newsflash, buddy, media is the Greek sorceress who casted illusions. Funny how that works, eh? So, moving forward, I had left my email address, of course, in that live stream so that I could get a hold of Serena and potentially give her the benefit of the doubt and talk to her about what's really going on. And so I had told her that she seems nice, but really wants to include absolutely everybody, and on a very cringy sense, actually throughout the entire acronym of all the letters of the LGB whatever community. And I had basically brought up the fact that I don't care what people do in their own privacy, but I do care about George Soros-funded organizations going somewhere, because you're just essentially putting people in danger and asking for problems to occur. And so I had suggested as well that you check out my Colin Ross video, which I believe I had left that link as well in the Maverick Multimedia platform there. So it was through Facebook that I had left those comments as well. If you want to dig up the channel yourself, you can look and see what I had left. So she goes on to tell me that she wants to plant seeds with people, but has to meet them where they're at and can't force the truth into people. And I do agree with that. However, fact of the matter is that you can't really tell the truth without offending people, because truth in and of itself is abrasive in nature. And she says that she understands how many of these groups are funded and that there is a narrative being pushed. And I'll be honest, I kind of missed the mark on asking her about that in and of itself, because I was a little bit heated in sending some of these emails, because I was very frustrated, and it had literally reminded me of dealing with HR in different corporations. That's what it had reminded me of. So I told her that you don't plant seeds by tiptoeing around the truth, being that black nobility, political groups, NGOs, fraternities, and the intelligence community essentially trickle their way into absolutely anything and everything. And I quoted Thomas Paine and said, "He who dares not offend cannot be honest." And I reminded her that people have been suffering enough for the last 3 years with the sustainable agenda in play anyway. And what had honestly kind of pissed me off, if I'm totally honest with you, was that she had told me that I had not reviewed her content or was not familiar with her content. So I reminded her that I was familiar with her content by telling her that she grew up in Treaty 8 territory, just like a Marcella Desjardins, which I'll get to, and she grew up in the same town as her, and she is likely related to her and is Nehu, which is a form of Cree, from what I understand. And she ran as a school board trustee for the Cowichan Valley. And I asked if it was Marcella that initially brought her into the freedom movement, if you will. And so I reminded her that protesting or gathering is essentially a waste of time, because there are no solutions brought forth there, and essentially all you get is an endorphin rush, and it's like an energy harvesting operation in that regard. So I say that any real solutions, like growing your own food, or creating your own fuel, having your own source of power or energy, those are subject to willpower of an individual, frankly, and you can't really use words to make people do those things, unfortunately. So, at best, she is being used as a pawn in a game of dialectics, and I reminded her that just because Anti-Hate Network ran a hit piece on her, that she is not the good guy facing the bad guys, and that things are not really that simple, because at the end of the day, if you attend a protest or convoy, you're going to be labeled a right-wing extremist or racist anyway. So, typical. I'm going to move my picture of me, and then we have over here, this is Marcella Desjardins, who I had mentioned in that email, and then we have James Davison over here of Stand United BC. I'm sure they primarily function out west. And we have Odessa Orlowitz, for instance, from Liberty Talks here, and Maxime Bernier, who I've called out in regards to working on the social economy, otherwise known as United Nations Agenda 2030. You can watch my social economy video for that. And we can see that Stand United BC is, of course, part of the old t-shirt grift that various clowns have been called out for. So we see here all hoodies and t-shirts designed or printed by James Davison. Marcella Desjardins ran for the PPC under the name Marcella Williams, and the PPC is Maxime Bernier's political party. Again, you can watch my video on the social economy to learn more about him, or see what he's like, because I've gone up to him and asked him various questions, and of course, not really gotten very far, being that he wasn't really willing to deliver truth, of course. So, on January 7th, I ended up emailing Dallas and asking to speak to him myself. I was going to try to gather information from him. And so I had spoken to him, and he had told me that I had spoken to him on January the 8th, actually. And I spoke to him and several others for 6.5 hours, actually. And he says to me that you have to have red flags, and I asked him what he meant, and he said you got to verify you can trust someone in the truth movement. And I brought up the fact that he had worked for this company called Ascend Technologies, which has subcontracted for the NSA. And he has spoken about that on the Jesse Hal Show, and he's spoken to me about that as well. So Jesse Hal's show is called The Missing Link, by the way, and you can look for Dallas's episode if you want. So Ascend Technologies offers a full suite of managed and consulting IT services, helping business leaders across a broad range of industries gaining visibility and enhanced utilization of their deployed infrastructure and applications while maintaining, monitoring, and managing day-to-day operations. Unify the People is the group title on Facebook, and we see constitutional conventions in the back. Now, I am told that apparently Unify the People was either taken over or given to, I'm not sure of the details, by someone by the name of Chris Herod, essentially. However, I'm not sure how true this is. This is Chris Herod, by the way. So, under Unify the People, in the media section, I see here Fringe Farm Network is posted by Eric CMB, which is Eric Cabernell. Eric Cabernell, we can see, is one of the names of the directors of Unify the People. So let's look at Fringe Farm Network. It's a network of it's a national, international group of concerned society members, some of whom have been present in various economic, business, agriculture, and activism awareness networks, boasting several decades of combined experience and abilities. So, I had asked Dallas about if he knew William Lehman, and he told me that he does know William Lehman, and I find that William Lehman has quite the resume if you look on his page. So not only is he the founder of this organization, he also helped create a think tank called IAI, International Awareness Initiative, which is a think tank, it's described here, a think tank of several seasoned activists, movement leaders, and organizers who had helped build the movements that led to the current freedom movement over the years. Okay? And we're going to look at some of his resume here, essentially, through this section. On Facebook, So he's the owner of Fringe Farm, like I said, owner of Bear Clan Media, which I will get to, and he was part of Canada Unity. He had founded that think tank I had just mentioned, IAI. He was the founder and former founder team lead at Referendum RIC. He had promoted a digital form of direct democracy, and he was a co-founder and operation leader at the Yellow Vest movement as well. So, and also a secretary at Nova Scotians for Freedom. He definitely is organizing across the board and has created a lot of different groups, essentially. So, I don't know, make of it what you will, but I've already covered the Yellow Vests in previous videos, and Canada Unity is responsible for that MOU, and James Bowder's name is on the MOU as well. So, we see Bear Clan Media here has a link to something called Finley Media Solutions. So that's where I find this webpage here. Nice symbols here. Make of it what you will. They essentially deal with social media management, content creation, and website and logo design. So, one other red flag I had noticed, by the way, about Dallas, just on a side note, was that he had told me that they, whoever he's referring to, I'm not sure, they used to do anonymous videos, but it got taken over by globalists. Anonymous, very much like the truck convoy, was never grassroots to begin with. Anonymous was always a psy-op from the get-go, because the face of it is V from V for Vendetta, who is based off of Guy Fawkes, which is a Jesuit that attempted to blow up a British Parliament. That was essentially a false flag operation, and again, I stress Guy Fawkes was a Jesuit. So, you can look into the answers about how that is a psy-op and those events in my previous video called Kofefe, where I talk about Anonymous and QAnon as psy-ops. So, on January 5th, 2023, I end up finding a post, actually, on Unify the People's page, the same page I was on. I just put it in Paint here to make things easier so I'm not clustered with several tabs, but there's a meeting with someone from India named Mayank Pincha from India, and he's representing a group called Free Earth Alliance. Okay, so Free Earth Alliance, what is that? Well, it says here that it is a guide towards fulfilling your purpose of life with a sole motto to not just survive in these times of crisis, but to shine and thrive while ushering a natural world order. Interesting choice of words. We also help catalyze freedom-loving people and organizations to align and collectively manifest a planetary, grassroots, decentralized, and bottoms-up governance participation. Okay, so decentralized is also a buzzword to me. And secondly, you can go through the website yourself, but they have a section where they talk about controlled opposition, and they mention Alex Jones of InfoWars, while on a different section on the website, they promote Stu Peters, who is on InfoWars. So it doesn't take a genius to really see through what this website essentially is. And one of the organizations that they have ties to, under the tab, if you go under the Freedom tab and you click on Decentralized World Partnerships, it brings you to one of those to several groups, and one of them is called New World Alliances. And New World Alliances is ran by this gentleman called Larry Marvin Schwartz, who has quite the resume. It says he's a chairman of New World Alliances, an executive director and advisor to the World Peace Command in Europe. I have no idea what that is. And outside of his current portfolio, he represents people in the following capacities: 4th and 6th members of the global government over Africa, a senator within the Senatus Consultum, and senior advisor of the chairman of the board, the biggest global think tank that includes the Council of Foreign Relations and other committees, minister within the economic division and international parliament in relation to the European Council, European Commission, and the European Parliament under the European Union. And he's a senior advisor to various countries with the Global War Advisory Council. Sir Larry is a director at the Committee of 21, giving him unique insider status within the Council of 13 and most global committees and clubs councils. This position gains Sir Larry the ultimate authority in understanding the agendas of those rolling out the New World Order. So, if anybody wants to send me links about what the Council of 13 or Committee of 21 is, I would be happy to look at those links. It was difficult for me to find information, but I believe that those organizations actually surpass one called the Committee of 300, which Committee of 300 is actually above that of the Bilderberg and Trilateral Commission. So, I'm going to show you Sir Larry Marvin Schwartz LinkedIn page to show you here that he is an FBI agent as well and has been with the FBI since June 2000. This guy's resume is never ending, and this is so gleaming. I don't know how somebody like Dallas could have missed this, frankly, because he is much smarter than this, frankly. This is a video here that I was talking about where Mayank Pincha from India, I apologize for the pronunciation of his name, by the way, but they end up meeting with constitutional conventions, essentially. This is Eric Cabernell, by the way, and I want to say the only parts worth listening to is listen to 54 minutes onwards to 1 hour, so that's 60 minutes of listening. And the reason why I bring that up is because this particular individual, whose screen name is Richard Q, I don't know his real name, he ends up touching his chin about 3 times, and he mentions quite a few buzzwords at that very same time, where he essentially mentions that it's a good idea to open Zoom meetings internationally, touches his chin, and the fact that many people are not proactive in Canada, and he decides to touch his chin, and describes himself as sort of decentralized, are his words, and that he's out in the boonies, and each time he does these things, he does a Masonic penalty sign, which I'm going to get to. But I just want to say that at the 55-minute mark is when just after the 55-minute mark, actually, is when you see someone named Scott Rayner speaking. I'm going to try to get a good image of him here within this video, so that you can see him. If not, then you'll definitely get a good, sorry for the images here. You'll definitely get a good image of him in the thumbnail for sure. That much I can guarantee. So I'm going to move forward and talk about those Masonic penalty signs, and I would, again, advise watching from 54 minutes toward an hour, because every time this particular obscure penalty sign is used, he uses buzzwords. If he did not use those buzzwords, I probably wouldn't have caught this, if I'm honest. So, the neck, a sign of sacrifice. A number of dictionaries of symbols state that the hand placed on the neck signifies sacrifice. Now, sacrifice can have at least 2 meanings. 1, the continuing threat of the penalties to be applied to punish those adepts and initiates who so impertinently reveal the secrets of the order. And 2, the willingness of the individual performing the sign to sacrifice himself for the good of the order or for the good of the cause or great work of the Illuminati, as said so here. One of the signs for ritual of the Grand Master-elect degree is a dagger under the chin, according to this image here, and under Richardson's Monitor of Freemasonry, page 146. So the neck ritual. Neck being the bridge to the head and brain, intellect, and the point at which the jugular vein can be ruptured by a knife or stone thrust, does seem to be an appropriate place to physically focus this sign. Duncan's Masonic Ritual and Monitor summarizes the penal code of Freemasonry that reference book says the various penal signs are designed so that each intimates that the stiff neck of the disobedient shall be cut off from the head of the living. The ritual for the Grand Master elect degree, according to Richardson's Monitor of Freemasonry, has the candidate either placing the point of a knife under the chin, or alternatively clenching the fingers of the right hand, extending the thumb, placing it on the abdomen, and moving it upwards toward the chin as if ripping the body open with a knife. In York Rite, the past master or 5th degree, the candidate places the thumb of his right hand, fingers clenched, upon his lips. This, says Duncans, alludes to the penalty of having his tongue split from tip to root. So basically, this can either, what Richard Q was doing essentially either represents having your tongue ripped out for speaking secrets or cutting your throat. Benjamin Franklin, Rosicrucian, and Mason, from an oil portrait painted by David Martin in 1766. This famous painting today hangs over the fireplace at the Green Room at the White House. And we can see here an Israeli magician doing that same sign as well, and he's friends with Michael Jackson. Same sign again, Helena Blavatsky, Peter Drucker, excuse me. Foreign minister right here does this next sign as well, and a Roman Catholic bishop, and a former CIA chief of counterintelligence does a varying version of it. And then we see as well Kramer from Seinfeld essentially doing another variation of it. So, enough about the neck. Constitutional conventions. I'm just pointing these two channels here to the left seem to be Dallas's work, and the other one without a display picture seemed to be not his work entirely. It seems to be somebody else by the name of Beatrice. Now, what I want to say is that almost all of my videos throughout my channel have actually been uploaded onto those channels. However, the ones that were missing were the Marcus Ray videos, essentially, which I thought were kind of weird because why would you miss those when you even have old videos of me on social media speaking at protests, which I don't do anymore at all, right? How do you avoid those two videos? So what I want to say here is my Marcus Ray video that I had done, and in particular I had talked about this organization called CDDA, and the CDDA looked very different actually. This is how the website roughly looked. However, this is how it looks now, and I can't recover it through Wayback Machine because you can erase hyperlinks and Wayback Machine has its limits. But you click here past this 404 and we see that this is mycanadianfreedom.ca is a subsidiary of Canadian Democratic Defense Association. So I go to the website. And then when I go here, there's a nice, very specific mention here, and it's definitely, I'm going to have to highlight it here because they didn't organize this too well, but it says here that the CDDA and the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court, has no affiliations with the United Nations and are each their own independent entities. The United Nations is dependent on the ICC as an independent judiciary to prosecute war crimes, crimes against humanity, and all other violations of the Rome Statute. So the ICC and the United Nations work hand in hand, and I think this is the CDDA's pathetic way of trying to sever the connection to the United Nations, frankly, by giving this illusion of a statement here. So, moving forward, we see here, this is the first Wayback Machine link here for Unify the People from May 3rd, 2020. This is the earliest that I could find it. And we see that there's a donate button, which is no different than any of the other organizations that ask for donations. I had asked Dallas one of the many times that I had spoken to him when he realized that the Yellow Vests were controlled opposition, and he basically had implied since they were in Canada, since the spin-off from France came around. Now, this is pretty interesting because under United Patriot Groups on June the 7th here, we see that the yellow vests are advocated on this group. And this is from June 7th, 2020. So he claims that after the first 6 months that somebody named Chris Herod, of course, had Unify the People. However, being that Unify the People was incorporated in February, let's count that down. February, March, April, May, June, that's 5 months in. So he would have still had the organization, assuming he's actually telling the truth, if I'm honest. So I was told, or sorry, let me just show you the last Wayback Machine link here. This is exactly from 2022. This is July 23rd, and this is the latest date that I could access. So, and there's still a donation button up there, and they're selling signs, clothing, doing the typical grift thrift, if you will. So, I was also told at one point that there would be a meeting that involves Serena Winterburn and Martin Brodman, who is one of the names that was on that Canada MOU. And I had wanted to use that as an opportunity to go to that meeting and question him. However, I think that Dallas and Wanda were well aware of that, and I was not contacted. They could chalk this up to forgetting, but I would like to think it's actually something definitely very different, if I'm honest with you, being that a lot of the answers and things that I was told were very inconsistent and all over the map, and I was told to do things that they could have easily figured out themselves. So, as well, besides talking about the MOU, which I was definitely going to ask Martin Brodman about, we can see that there is this organization, and it apparently no longer exists, but it is also incorporated, and it was part of the Sustainable Development window, if you will, ISED. We see Martin Brodman's name on it. And then in this one, we can see Dennis Chevrier's name right on this corporation here. And Dennis Chevrier is one of the names on this particular organization over here. So the last thing I want to close and say here is that this is the logo that is going around representing this new truck convoy, if you will. And Ron Clark over here, it's his wife who apparently designed this. And I'm not sure if somebody had either contracted her to do so, or if she had, or what media outlet she had given this to first, or how this really took off, if I'm honest with you. However, the thing that I noticed is Ron Clark does have a Facebook page. He was in that 6.5-hour meeting I was at, and Ron Clark goes by the name Ron Clark Freedom Advocate on Facebook, and there were ads in his videos last time I looked, so that tells me he has a paid sponsorship. So I don't know who sponsors him, but I'd definitely be asking him that. Anyway, there's not a whole lot that adds up, and what I just want to say in closing to you guys is don't fall for the same tricks I did. If something doesn't smell right, don't go along with it. I shouldn't have even responded to the emails or entertained Dallas as far as I'm concerned, but it's a learning experience. Anyways, take care of yourselves. Don't make the same mistake I did.